Okay, about the DCL, as we discussed, it is non-executable because only the database administrators would be doing this, running these kind of statements. But we are going to cover this part of for what are the occasions these administrators are actually going to use this grant statements. So let's go proceed with the grant and then we'll next do the revoke. Okay, taking the grant statement, as you see, here is the statement syntax. So grant, what are the privileges you want to grant? Okay, so you want to give a select privilege, you want to give an insert, update, delete, create. So these are the privileges you give to a particular user. So what I have done here is I have granted all these privileges on which table, right? So I'm trying to give you a privilege, select, insert, and update and all on which particular database object. Say, for example, if you have been given a key, okay, and you don't know what is the purpose of the key, which lock does this key actually open, then there is no point, right? So we are giving a grant of select, update, insert, delete on for which lock. So keys are nothing but these privileges, and for on which lock are we giving? On test table 1. Okay, here on test table 1, actually we are trying to give grant of all these privileges. To whom are you trying to give? Giving the key to whom? So here I have mentioned as MGR. So this first statement, what it says is here, MGR is a manager role. Okay, so these DBAs, what they are going to do is they are like they cannot be see every day-to-day basis. If someone is coming and joining the company, they can't sit with them and talk with them and get to know and just start giving the selecting, update, delete, and all each certain privileges on each tables to the particular user. What they do is they create a role. Okay, they are very smart. They create role in the organizational hierarchy. So as per the organizational hierarchy, they already create a role like team lead, manager, and developer, tester. These are the roles which are generally created. So the first statement here says MGR is the manager role. Okay, so once they create this role, okay, they use the create statement and create the role. And once they create the role, what they do is they give this grant on the particular table to that role. Okay, so this role will be created as per the organizational hierarchy and what all tables should be accessible for a manager. What all privilege should be given on that particular to the manager or that particular table to the developer or a tester role. Okay, so all these kind of internal mapping, granting will be already done and it will be kept ready. So once a person, when he joins in a company, he will be created with a user ID and the user ID just has to be mapped with the role, whether that particular person is a manager or that particular person is a tester or a developer. So now how do you grant for a role? Okay, that is the first example which we have seen here. Grant, select, insert, update, delete, and create. These are the privileges on that particular table, test table 1 to MGR, the role. Okay, when you run this, actually what happens is this role will get these privileges over this table. And the second one example, what we are trying to do is directly grant these privileges on the table to a user. Individually, can you give access to the user? Yes, you can do. Okay, not only for the roles, you can give privileges to the user also. When will this actually be helpful? When you're doing some deployment or any upgradation work, and the person who's actually doing the deployment should have access. Okay, in case that particular person is not having access, only during that deployment period of time, that user has to have the access on these particular tables and what kind of privileges on that particular tables, you can create a grant statement. Okay, you can create a grant statement on those particular privileges on the particular tables and give the access to the user separately. Once the deployment is done, then you can revoke it back. Okay, so that's when this kind of granting to a particular user will be used. So you can see the second type, which is to user. So first type was granting for a role, and second is granting to a user. And the third one here, what is done is, here Chris is user with grant access. Okay, what happens here is they are granting these privileges, select, insert, update, and all on a particular table to a user named as Chris with grant option. Okay, so you're granting a user and you're giving the grant permission also, so that that user can start giving grant on to a, he can pass on. Okay, so if they are giving the grant option to me, I've been given the privilege to select or insert or delete a record from this particular table along with the grant option. Then later, if there are some teams coming under me, if I want to grant privileges to that particular team member, then because I have the grant option, I can grant some access to them as well. Generally, this is not performed in any of the companies or organizations, because once my grants have been revoked when I'm leaving my company or when I'm leaving the project, if my accesses are getting revoked, automatically my successors, whoever I have granted, okay, so those people access also will be revoked. That's why we are always following the role management. You create a role, you assign the user to the role, you grant access to the particular role. So whoever is present in that role, they will automatically have the privileges as per that particular role. So no individual grants are encouraged to be given to a particular user. Actually, no grants are encouraged to be given to the user. Only under the deployment place, no, the user will be given a grant for the deployment and then revoked it back. In case the user is given a grant and he is also giving a grant option to a another successor and all, then once that particular user is going out of the project or the company, all the successors would lose their access on the data. Okay, this is very important point to be noted, because there was an issue in real time. When we are in the real time scenarios, we were not, suddenly our accesses were revoked and we didn't know what was going on wrong. This DBA person, what he has done is he has logged on with his personal user ID and he has granted the permission to us. And on that particular day, regularly he does not do that. He used to log in with the DBA ID and then give the access as a role. Okay, DBA role, he has logged into the system and given the access. It would have been a permanent. Whenever he is leaving, it would not have affected to us. But because on that particular day, I don't know, he was loaded with much of work. He has logged in with his user ID and given the access to us. Once he left the company, we don't even know whether he was there. Suddenly, once he was not there in the company or when he logged out of the project, all our access were revoked and we didn't know what went wrong, why we lost the access to the data. So these kind of issues might happen. So we have to be very careful. These grant and revoke are only for DBA teams. So as a DBA person, you should know these things. Being a developer or a manager also, you should know these are the type of issues which you could face in the organization. So that is with the grant option. So this is the keyword. And as I said, if Chris is already given the grant option, then he can use it. He can log in with his user ID and then grant permissions to Ram or any other user. And how do you revoke it? Again, it is very simple. This is the syntax for revoke. Revoke these privileges on this table from Chris. So when you grant, it is two. Two is the keyword, and when you revoke, it is keyword is from. So these are the basic points which are need to be remembered under DCL statements. We cannot run these because this is meant for database administrators. So these are the syntaxes and these are the main points under DCL.